All right, here we go. I'm going to give myself a countdown.
Getting it out.
You gonna make me laugh?
I'm getting it out.
All right. Welcome to another edition of Z-Man Sports. I am your host, Arvin Narvaez. Joining me today, former youth athlete and current student at Felician College, majoring in business administration, Arvin Narvaez Jr. Arvin, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. Happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate some of your time. Listen, you played youth sports for 11 years. And I recently was reading a story on youth sports and the positive and negative impacts on young athletes. I'd like to get your thoughts. What was your experience playing youth baseball for 11 years?
So playing youth baseball for me, I think was huge to my overall character, to who I am as a person. I mean, when you play sports, unless you're playing tennis, you're on a team. There's a bunch of people around you. You're working with different kinds of people. You're working with different, attitudes or likes and dislikes. And as a kid, you don't realize those things. You're too young to kind of, see things for what they really are. But as you get older, or maybe, speaking for myself, as I got older, I kind of looked back, and realized that, working with, different kinds of people, as I explained, really did help me overall as a person, moving forward, whether it be, professionally with work, or going forward with my academic career.
So as far as what your expectations were when you started, and I realized that you were, I know you started at about 6 years old, so you're probably reaching a little bit, or I'm reaching a little bit with this question, but what was your expectations about playing sports? And
so when it came to playing sports, especially when I first started, it was about just getting out the house, having fun. You know what I mean? It was about those kind of things, just putting the glove on, putting some cleats on, playing in some dirt, So I think that's definitely what it really was, especially from the beginning.
So just about having fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the concerns in the study is the lack of training of little league and high school coaches. Something that I thought was kind of interesting. Less than 20% of little league coaches receive formal training, and only 8% of high school coaches receive any formal training. So how do you feel about the preparation that you received from some of your coaches?
Coming from that, statistic, it's definitely, I can see that. A lot of coaching strategies are what I like to define as raw, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, I can definitely see, definitely that correlation. There were some coaches where, they were a little more, they didn't follow script, I guess I would say, maybe in terms of the way they acted or reacted, or things they said, and as a kid, I guess you look at this sometimes, you're like, oh, that's a little weird, but, you can definitely see, maybe sometimes a lack of training that was around.
So you say raw. Raw can mean a lot of different things for different people. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, a lot of times, especially as an adult, especially those of us who wanted to be professional athletes and didn't or couldn't make it, a lot of times we try to impose that on the kids around us, whether it's our own kids or, in this case, wanting to be a little league coach. Do you feel like that may have been, or you know what, let me reword that. How do you think that experience was, as far as what the coaches presented to you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think their motivation was?
Mm. That's a great question. I definitely think, what you said is definitely evident. Maybe doing things because maybe they couldn't do it, or maybe they were, they're coaching because they always dreamed just that they'd have a son that would be a baseball star, basketball star, you know what I mean, some kind of star. Um, so you can definitely see in the way like in the way that they taught you sometimes, or maybe in the way they reacted to things or tried to teach you things that it wasn't always coming from a place of, no, I'm just trying to help you, and that's not a knock to them, you know what I mean? Because I guess it really does show maybe their true passion, and that they really do have a feel for the sport and that they do care about the sport. But sometimes there was that feeling of, like my reaction to something was kind of like, like, dude, like I'm just trying to have fun, you know what I mean? Like what's going on here? Like, so yeah.
Interesting. I get that. And again, this is Arvin Arvad, C-Man Sports with Arvin Jr. Um, another concern in the study deals with the perception of why kids play sports versus what parents feel they play sports. And it's interesting that you just mentioned, about your coaches feeling that way. What was the communication like with your parents about why you played sports?
Yeah. So I mean, when it came to my parents and playing sports, it was always kind of like sports were always around. You know what I mean? Especially with my dad. I mean, my mom always told me when I was a kid, instead of watching cartoons, I put on Sports Center. You know what I mean? So
I remember
sports
that.
it was just something, that I've just always felt a part of. Not even been a part of, but felt a part of. So I never had the pressure to join a team, or I never had the pressure to, play a certain sport or go to a practice or, any of those kind of things. It was always kind of like, this is something that you really want to do, you can do it, as long as your grades are good.
Right. And it's funny you talking about pressures, because one of the things that I would like to understand is, and obviously, you know, um, there's different kinds of pressures, right? And we talk about the communication with your parents, and you never felt like you were pressured to play.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever feel pressure about the way you played?
Mm, that's a great question. um, I mean, like you said, there's different kinds of pressure. Um, and I think that maybe the pressure that was applied, um, it wasn't in a way that was unmotivating. Um, it was kind of more so in ways that was kind of trying to show potential. You know what I mean? It was kind of ways and maybe where if I didn't play well, it was kind of like, well, you had a chance to maybe practice some more and you chose not to, or, different things like that. Not kind of, saying, well, you got to do good because I'm paying for all of this or something like that. It was never
Right.
anything, like that. It was just more so kind of making me reflect on myself, I guess I want to say.
So how or what did you learn from those experiences? But
Yeah, so when it came to those experiences, I think the biggest thing I learned in those experiences was, like I said, reflecting on the self. You know what I mean? Kind of looking back to me and seeing what could I have done to have gotten a better result. Because I can't be mad about the end goal of something. Not the end goal, but I can't be mad about the end result of something if I didn't do, anything in the middle to better, what the possible end could have been. So I think that's definitely the biggest thing I learned growing up.
okay. And another thing mentioned in the study was how programs overemphasize winning. And I know you played travel baseball for 8 of those 11 years,
Mm-hmm.
and those were basically all-star teams.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of pressures did you, or what kind of pressures were put on the players to win on those teams?
So when it came to those teams, it always felt a little different. You kind of felt like you were playing. It wasn't just like a regular little league game. You were representing, excuse me, a town, a city. A group of people. So when it came to that aspect of it, you kind of, reflected on it because, when you go maybe to, like we went to, one of our teams went to districts, almost went to regionals. And, we got a bunch of people in the stands and a bunch of, fans and the family members and the brothers and sisters and all that stuff in the fans. And you kind of feel like they're a part of you and you have to do something to make them proud. That really is the feeling. And even as a kid, you feel that, because the travel teams, they cost money, obviously, and people have to travel to get there, so even if, maybe those external forces, external, pressures aren't really being applied to me directly, like, hey, do this, it's kind of just like a feeling you have, I guess.
Right. So, excuse me. Did you feel those pressures? Or how about your teammates? How did they handle, or how did they um, portray, or what's the word I'm looking for? You know, how did they handle those pressures?
Yeah. So I think when it came to them, I don't know if they saw it, the way I did. To everyone around me, it was kind of just like a game. But when it came to sports, since I've always felt, like I said, so connected to it, like I never felt like I played a sport, like I've been a part of sports. And I've always watched it on the big stage and the small stage. I feel as if I felt so much more a part of it. I don't know, maybe they saw it the same way I did. It was never something, honestly, that was discussed. Maybe that was kind of all the time we get yelled at in the dugouts for joking and stuff. Maybe that was us trying to, get away from those pressures in that moment. You know what I mean? Without really knowing that we were trying to do that.
Yeah, a form of release. I get that. And again, this is Arvin Narvaez with Z-Man Sports. Again, talking with Arvin Jr. What lessons that you learned playing sports that you think you can use off the field?
I think the biggest lesson I learned playing sports is what you put out is what you get. Yeah,
That is very true.
if you don't practice, it'll never make perfect. So if if you're gonna put minimum effort, you're gonna get minimum result. So that's something I've always tried to apply. Again, academically, professionally, whatever it is, even if it's an obstacle I face in life, you can always give effort towards anything you're going through.
I think that's a valid point. A lot of people fail to realize that if you don't put any effort into anything, then you're probably not going to get anything out of it. And then they're the first ones to blame other people for their lack of effort. So, and based on those lessons, what could you have done differently on the field or just in general?
Man, on the field, I probably could have taken the sport more seriously. Again, like I emphasized from the beginning, it was always something I did more so for fun. I felt like maybe I was a good player, but I always kind of had the understanding that I never really had that talent or that special ability to make it to the next level, and I was fine with that. I was content. And maybe with me being content, that might have limited maybe me reaching something that I didn't know I had. So maybe that's something that I probably change.
And that's not something easy because, I had a similar experience where, I always had players around me that were better, that kind of pushed me. And a lot of times because you have that, you feel as though you're not good enough. So, you always wish that you could have pushed a little bit harder.
Mhm.
Um, when and if you ever have kids, what would you do differently with them?
um, Differently.
Would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I don't know if there's too much to do differently. Um, a lot of it comes to willpower. What you're willing to put into it. Like I know 1,000%. If I went to any one of my parents, and I said I wanted to go train or I wanted to go do this, no wasn't going to be an answer. That yes was going to be there. So I don't think there's anything to change. Honestly, when it came to me playing sports. again, I myself realized from a young age that this wasn't going to be something that was forever, and I was okay with that.
So, given the opportunity to speak with young athletes today, what would you say to them?
I think when it comes to the young athletes, I love the kids, by the way. I think the kids are so important. You know, they really are the future. But young athletes especially, just reminding them that, you know, it is going to be some hard nights. You know, it is going to be tiring. It is going to be hard. You know, coming from school and then having to go to practice and then having to do your homework. You know what I mean? And that those things are going to be tough, but it really is preparing you for what is to come, whether you're in sports or whether you're not in sports. You know, if you're not in sports, well, then you're going to go from work to a job to then, you know, doing homework and doing different things like that. So really appreciate the process, you know, instead of really, you know, trying to see what's, you know, farther away or what's in 10 years or you want to be this age or you want to be that age, you know, enjoy right now, genuinely.
That's good advice. Very good advice. A lot of times we forget to live in the moment, even as adults. So, and for young kids, I know that a lot of times that's also very true. And that's all the time that we have for today, guys. Thank you again for joining me. This is Arvin with Z-Man Sports. And thank you, Arvin, for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Until next time.